In this episode of Mississippi Roads, it's an art theme. We take in an art show in a motel. We feature Mississippi artist William R. Hollingsworth, whose focus was on painting Mississippi scenes, and Peter's Pottery in Mound Bayou.
Down Mississippi Road, Mississippi Road.
Hi, welcome to Mississippi Roads. I'm Walt Grayson. We're on the Gulf Coast this week. We're in the town of Ocean Springs, and more specifically, we're at the Walter Anderson Museum of Art. And the reason for that is the entire show this week is art-themed. Ocean Springs has taken on the quality of an artist colony, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Anderson brothers lived here and worked here. Which, by the way, if you've not been to the Peter Anderson Art Festival, it happens every autumn right downtown in Ocean Springs for a couple of days, where thousands of artists and art collectors get together, just right out here in the open air. You know, Mississippi has become kind of a mecca for the arts. Our first story sort of bears that out. This has got to be the quirkiest art festival we've ever covered. It's in, of all places, an old motel in Oxford, and it's appropriately called One Night Stand.
I am a photographer. About 11 years ago, I was out shooting, just driving around as I do, shooting photography. I was like, this is such an interesting hotel. I just liked the kind of the kitschiness, the classic, you know, vintage travel lodge style. And at the time, there weren't a lot of places for artists to show their work. It seemed like the natural, thing, let's just, you know, do an art show here. I just got a bunch of friends together and we each got a room. They pay, at that time, I had the artists paying for their rooms. And, you know, so it was kind of like whoever wanted to, you know, that I invited would come and just be in it. And now it's an invitation only kind of thing where I can actually curate the rooms. You just kind of go from one room to the next, and I've kind of always thought of it as part parking lot party, part art show.
It is my first year and I'm loving it. The people are nice, the setup is, you kind of have free reign to do your own thing, and so I really like that. I started doing photography. Probably from there it kind of became a means of communication and expression for me.
So Frances Berry is this artist that this was her very first show, and she's been in Vogue, she's doing album covers for bands in Europe, and she's kind of all over the place. She's about to have her first solo show in New York. I mean, it's really great to see where she got her start and where she is now.
My name is Amy Evans, and I am from Houston, Texas, but I lived in Oxford for about 14 years. Well, I love vintage packaging and advertising. I just love the kind of personality that old products have, and I love referencing that. And then I like telling stories, so there's this is from a group of paintings I did about vintage beauty and things that women used to use in their kitchen to moisten their skin and soften their curls.
Jason Simon he's from Tupelo. He's a PhD student at Ole Miss, but he would walk around going to class and just started taking pictures of very minimalist, the rooftop of a building with one single cloud above it.
I just like to see how, I guess, consumerism kind of blends into our landscape, without noticing it. I got a bit of anxiety, it helps me to straighten things and look for little patterns. I have a problem with stacking things in order, moving things that are flush to a coffee table or in the refrigerator. I have things stacked up, in order, in size and everything like that. I've always been like that with food. When I was a kid, I couldn't let any of my peas or my mashed potatoes touch and stuff like that,
I'm Shelly Kaiser from Oxford, Mississippi.
I'm Jake Rogers from Corinth, Mississippi.
We put different things on like a flatbed scanner and scanned it at really high resolution.
We were bored one night and we said, can we put our faces on it? And after we put our faces on it, well, let's try this. Let's try that.
We just started grabbing things from around the house and putting it on there. And then that was just putting my cat on the scanner and hoping she didn't move. And when she did, it turned out great. No problems.
Adrienne Brown David lives in Water Valley. She's a painter and she does also tiny prints. So like she does like tiny little buildings or massive. She did one that was when you're 10 feet tall and it was just hundreds of tiny little cities. It's beautiful.
I actually am a big fan of Alphonse Mucha, who did like a lot of Art Deco pieces back in like the 50s and 60s, and he did all of these like ethereal women and zodiac charts, and I really like them, but I wanted to do a different play on them with women with very dark skin and very, short hair, very prominent features.
My name is Jonathan Adams. I'm from Oxford, Mississippi. I'm originally from Yazoo, Mississippi. Most of my art kind of deals with kind of religious symbolism, and then me being a gay person, but then there are also like just regular still lifes. But a lot of why I want to make art in Mississippi is to show people that there are gay people here and that some of us are religious, not all of us.
Andy Bedsworth is a local art teacher here. She does a lot of fabric art and collage art as well.
That little piece right there on the skull, I really love that piece. My grandmother passed like 18 years ago, but it was to honor her. She wore the most garish, she wore a beehive wig and lots of scarves, and she called them ear bobs. And so I put earrings on the skull and a lot of like embellishment because she was always embellished, and that's my Granny B right there.
I love it. Like, I love the concept of just one night, come set up, everybody comes out.
People are curious about the Ole Miss Motel, I think, too. They get to like see in a room at a place that they may not see otherwise.
I've heard a lot of stories about this place growing up.
I don't know much of the history of the motel, but it's definitely significant to this show. It's everything that you wouldn't expect from a fine art show, but perfectly matches with like what I'm trying to accomplish from this show. And so I can't imagine having it anywhere else except right here.
Our nationally acclaimed native Mississippi artists include, of course, Walter Anderson and George Orr, also from the Gulf Coast, a potter, and people like William Dunlap and William Hollingsworth. Hollingsworth is famous for his urban and rural scenery that he painted up around the Jackson area. He was very supportive of the arts and helped create what later became the Mississippi Museum of Art and left the museum almost 300 of his original pieces. Let's take a look at the life and the work of William Hollingsworth.
When people from all around the world come through this museum, and especially when they spend time in this exhibition, The Mississippi Story, it's William Hollingsworth they want to know more about when they leave.
William Hollingsworth was an early 20th century artist in Jackson. He was very important to the Jackson community, but he also achieved success nationally. And people recognize him not only for his accomplishments, but also because even nearly 100 years after his career, it still resonates with people today. William Hollingsworth attended Central High School in Jackson, and while he was there, he decided that he wanted to be a cartoonist. So his father supported him by paying for a $25 correspondence course in art. So when Hollingsworth graduated from Central High School, he went straight to the University of Mississippi. He was there for a couple of years, took classes, and he was the art editor for the school yearbook. After a couple of years, he decided it was time to leave Ole Miss, and he went to the Art Institute of Chicago. Chicago was very different from Jackson, even though it had been the capital city. He had never really experienced living in a metropolitan area like that. And at the time, Chicago was the second largest city in the country. It had the largest museum in the country. So he was able to experience world-class artwork right in his school at the Art Institute. And he was able to experience life on a much larger scale. The other key thing that happened in Chicago was meeting Jane Oakley. Jane was a fashion design student at the Art Institute, and they fell in love and were married in 1932. In 1933, they welcomed their first and only child, William Robert Hollingsworth III, who became known as Billy in his childhood.
William Hollingsworth kind of came of age when Mississippi artists were really beginning to find their own voices. He went away to school in Chicago. He was very well trained. He also was part of a burgeoning community of artists who really were setting a tone for the quality of Mississippi art and establishing a legacy and a vision and a voice for what it meant to be an artist here.
Outside of the state, his first bit of recognition came in 1935 with the inclusion of black and white in an exhibition called the All-American Show at the Art Institute of Chicago. You can see the use of light and dark, and as a viewer, you kind of become a part of this painting. You're kind of in the scene with the people who are on the streets. This was a painting that he submitted to multiple exhibitions.
He depicted life as he knew it in Jackson, Mississippi. He depicted rural scenes, landscapes, places he knew well. In fact, people like to point out where particular places are.
Old Canton Road really is one of his best watercolor landscapes, in my opinion. At a glance, it's just a road and its surrounding landscape, but when you look closer, you start to see all the little details that he included in the painting. So you see horses in the distance and tiny houses, and if you look very closely, you can see a mule pulling a cart, 3 people walking down the road, birds flying overhead. It just gives you a lot to really kind of dig into. He was fascinated with weather, and he loved getting out in the dreary weather, the rain and the snow and the ice, and he painted days that were not sunny. He painted fog. There's a great watercolor of a tree in front of the new Capitol building. It really focuses on the tree rather than the building behind it. Hollingsworth's studio was actually in his home. So when he wasn't working on commissions, or when he had time to really explore art and technique and just kind of practice his craft, his family were his subjects. So his son, his only son, Billy, his wife Jane, and they also had a terrier named Boy. So all 3 of them make their way into a lot of his work. Well, Hollingsworth produced art in a very short amount of time. He only worked for 10 years. He committed suicide at the age of 34, so there's really not, we don't know what would have been. But in that amount of time, he probably had thousands of pieces of work. When he died, his wife, Jane, really kind of became the curator of that collection. So she cared for it, she made sure it traveled, she really wanted to make sure that the public knew about her husband and his artwork.
So I think it's, it was an important time in Mississippi art history. It's a compelling life story, and then the work itself is so, so strong. And he is an artist who will continue to be one of which we're very proud, one who sets kind of a standard of quality for Mississippi art. And so we can only continue to mine that collection for more insights and more relevance as we get more mature as an institution and develop our kind of intellectual capacity to dig further.
Mississippi's full of art and artists. from all walks of life and all backgrounds. Peter Weeks is from the Delta town of Mound Bayou. He apprenticed under some of the state's best-known potters and then set out on his own. We visit Peter's Pottery and find out where he gets his drive, and also find out a little bit about his hometown of Mound Bayou. If the Mississippi Delta weren't a real place, some writer would have invented it by now as a setting in which contradictions abound, where what you have to do trumps what you want to do, until that one fateful day when you dare to step out. And that boldness makes all the difference in the world. The tiny town Mound Bayou in Bolivar County is real too, probably too real today, slowly deteriorating like other small towns in the Delta. It's no longer the haven envisioned by its founders, former slaves from Jefferson Davis's brothers' plantations near Vicksburg. They came to the Delta in the late 1800s. Lots of former slaves were buying land in the Delta back then. The Delta was still mostly undrained swamps and hardwood forests, but this particular group formed the town on the land they purchased from the railroad. The Montgomery home, this is the second home of the co-founder of the town, Isaiah Montgomery, is still standing. It's in dire need of restoration. The Mississippi Department of Archives and History has grand plans for the house. All they need to go ahead is the money. Mound Bayou prospered. It had stores and factories and, of course, cotton and a bank. One of the first banks in the South owned by blacks was here. Its building is still standing, too. A hospital for blacks was built in Mound Bayou by the fraternal organization the Knights and Daughters of Tabor. The organization's old headquarters building is here. The hospital's still here, too. Looks good on the outside, but that's simply as far as the restoration has gotten before funds ran out. Peter Woods, a lifelong resident of Mound Bayou, was born in this hospital.
When I was younger, the town was thriving. We had a hospital. I was born at the hospital here in Mound Bayou. We had 2 banks, quite a few industries here. But, you know, over time with the economy and everything, and with the new 4-lane, everything started bypassing the smaller towns, and people started leaving.
Peter has turned the corner in his hometown with a business that's growing and has been for many years, ever since Peter and his brothers stepped out and started doing for themselves what they had learned to do as apprentices, pottery. Peter says he's been fascinated by the things you can form from Delta clay ever since he was a child playing in Delta mud.
When we opened our business here in 1998, we were glad that we had a product to draw people back here because there's a lot of rich heritage here in Mound Bayou. Because Mound Bayou was founded by freed slaves, and so there's a lot of historical presence here.
It's a Saturday in Mound Bayou. Peter Woods tells us about Peter's Pottery between waiting on customers. Some are here for the first time. Many are regulars, stopping in to get another piece of Peter's Pottery for their collection.
So I started when I was 13 years old, but I worked for another artist at 13, every day after school and on weekends. And when I went to Delta State, I was working 40 hours a week, took 12 hours each semester. It took me 5 years to finish. But I have a degree in accounting and a minor in art. So that's how I got started, and so it's been over 38 years now. We started in 1998. It was 4 of us. We came together and we prayed about it because this was something that we had been doing for a while for someone else, but going out on your own and family working together that was a big task to take on. And so after we came together and decided that this is what we wanted to do, we had to come up with a name, and so with everyone knowing me, we came up with Peter. But as you can see on our logo, we have the P with the cross, and so that means when we started our business, we asked God to bless the business, and so we put the cross on it, because with family, normally when family goes into business, you never know if it's going to work out, it being the vision. And so, and being raised in the church, we wanted to make sure that we stay together, and God bless the business, and so that's how it came about with the logo.
It's unique, the quality of work they do, and the passion they have for it, to have toughed it out this long. They're always coming up with something new, so, and you can tell him what you want, and more than likely he's got it. I don't even know if they even have it all on display. I can mention something and they'll have it.
So in starting in 1998, we've just, each year has just been a blessing. We try to provide good customer service, quality detail work, and giving back to the community, because that is something that, raising the church, we try to give back, because it's the more you give, the more he gives to you. We had over 75 different pieces when we started. And when we first started, when we first decided to go into business, we had just a 10 by 20 shed. I mean, because this was just something that, we didn't realize the magnitude of what we were getting into. And we were just doing it as a hobby. But then after we bought the building, we was like, oh, this is not large enough. And so we decided we built the building ourselves. And so because the banks would not loan us any money, because this is not a tangible product, And so what we did, I sold my house, and we just did everything. My brothers and I, we just invested all of our funds into it. We prayed about it, and we just went out on a leap of faith. And we built this building here that you see here. And the original building was 5,000 square feet. Now this building encompasses over 20,000 square feet. And so it's just been a blessing over the years that we've had to add on. Because I had worked all my life, and I didn't do nothing but just save my money, and having to work and go to school. And that's another thing that our parents taught us to save. He said it's not the dollar that you make, it's the dollar that you save. So that's what our father, had instilled in us. We started out with 6 skills, and now we have 38. We had several people encouraging us to do it, and even before we opened, they wanted to be our, they say, well, we will carry your line in the store. Do it, get it done, we will carry your line. So at that, even before we opened the store, we had at least 6 different vendors, ready to carry the line, even before we even made a product. My job, I will design the piece. So that's what I do. And from start to finish is 7 to 10 days, as far as making the piece. But as far as designing a piece, that may take a week, 2 weeks, the original piece, and then we put it in production, afterwards. But all the pieces are made from Mississippi mud. Your dishwasher safe, food safe. You can use them in the microwave, and everything except for the pieces with the melted glass is food safe. Every day is like Christmas for me, because there's no 2 pieces are alike. If you look at the different colors, the green varies, the blue varies, even the white, you can have the pure white, you have some flecks of brown. Even on the brown, you have the light brown. So when you put the pieces in the kiln, you never know what it's going to come out, how it's going to come out. And when you open the kiln, you're like, oh my goodness, this is nice. And it make you want to take it home and exchange out a piece that you're already.
The Delta's a graveyard of dreams. Some came true and grew, like Mound Bayou, and then went away after a while. Some went into the ground, never having gotten beyond the dream stage. But those people who took that step, the step that you have to take beyond what you have to do to what you want to do, are the dreamers who turned into darers, who dare to take hold of life as if it were clay and mold it into what they will. And we, who are fortunate to be nearby, can enjoy the results. That's about all the time we have for this show. If you'd like information about anything you've seen, contact us at mpbonline.org/Mississippi Roads, or like our Mississippi Public Broadcasting Facebook page. Till next time, I'm Walt Grayson. I'll be seeing you on Mississippi Roads.
Mississippi Roads is made possible in part by the generous support of viewers like you. Thank you.